myself.
Genuine twists in video games can be hard to pull off, considering just how hungry for details we are on upcoming games and the rapid pace at which that information is shared. Plus, there's a tendency on the writer's end to play it safe, particularly with sequels. Why mess with a formula you know works? But those that dare to break the mold are part of the reason we love talking about video games, jaws agape, exclaiming, "I can't believe they did that." Here are our 10 favorite twists, the wildest, weirdest rug pulls in video games to date. Would you kindly follow us down this rabbit hole? And obviously, spoilers ahead. In Kaidos, a gorgeous deck builder RPG from the good old GameCube days, you play not as the main character Callus, but as his guardian spirit. As Callus and his friends work to thwart a fairly typical RPG villain plot, Callus will frequently ask you for advice, and even though you aren't playing as Callus technically, you still control him. He's the quote-unquote hero of the story, and you walk in his shoes. That is, until a scene mid-game when, during a confrontation with the villain up to that point, Callus straight up betrays the entire party, including you. In an absolutely wild and unexpected monologue, Kaidos' main character explains exactly how and why he deceived everyone, including his literal guardian angel who is at his side at every moment. He severs his connection with the player and the entire party is captured, leaving you, the player, floundering until you can make a new connection with the game's secondary protagonist. Silent Hill 2 sees protagonist James Sunderland returning to the eponymous town on invitation from his wife, who died some years prior after an illness. It's a scenario ripe for terrible shenanigans, and as James encounters a bunch of twisted psychosexual monsters and bizarre characters out to kill him, Silent Hill 2 begs the question, why is this happening, and is James' wife actually alive? It turns out, no, she's not. Silent Hill 2's shattering twist is that James actually euthanized his own wife, and the town is a manifestation of his guilt-ridden psyche out to punish him. It's devastating, weighty stuff, and a reminder that all the best horror has something much deeper at its core. A good part of Undertale's charm is slowly understanding that in this world, it doesn't have to default into kill or be killed. As you encounter various friendly and unfriendly faces, it's not an uncommon reaction in a first playthrough to decide to kill some monsters to level up and gain experience while sparing others. But Undertale revels in its ability to subvert expectations, especially when it comes to tried and true RPG mechanics, and nothing encapsulates this more than a twist just before your final battle. Here, a familiar face appears before you to pass judgment on your actions, done by looking at your XP and LV, or love. It comes as quite a shock to learn that the meaning behind these acronyms isn't the same as any old RPG. They stand for execution points and level of violence. You're immediately forced to reconcile with your actions over the course of your adventure and ask yourself, was it worth it? Despite the fact that it was leaked beforehand, The Last of Us Part 2's biggest twist remains a shocking piece of storytelling. Near the beginning of the sequel's story, the original Last of Us protagonist Joel Miller is ruthlessly bludgeoned to death at the hands of a brand new character wielding a golf club. Some fans were immediately appalled at the idea of the first game's hero dying in such an unheroic way, while others pointed out that the world of The Last of Us was built on crude and unsophisticated violence and that Joel was no saint after some morally nebulous decisions of his own in the previous game. Either way, that meant it was now up to Ellie to take control of the situation and exact revenge on her father figure's brutal murderer, right? Well, not quite. The Last of Us Part 2 stacked on another twist and asked players to play as Joel's killer Abby, the tough and stoic daughter of the surgeon Joel had selfishly murdered in the previous game. The Last of Us Part 2 ended up being a critical and commercial hit, and its twists are likely to be controversial among fans for years to come. Imagine it's 1994. You've been playing Final Fantasy VI for 25 hours, you're so close to stopping a deranged Kefka from destroying the world, and then you lose. Kefka actually destroys the world, casting it into ruin and scattering your entire party. A year passes, and most of the population has died, while the world bows to Kefka's strength. With an unexpected chunk of the game left to play, it's up to the player to track down every party member, wrap up their stories, and stop the now godlike Kefka once and for all. It's a twist that outstrips even Final Fantasy VII's famous bombshell moment. All throughout NieR Replicant's first playthrough, you've grown accustomed to just slaying shades without a second thought. They're all just terrifying monsters that threaten the lives of the humans from your village, right? But every now and then there's a hint that something about that isn't quite right. You see a shade executing an act of empathy, or one that seems to want to protect another. It's not enough to make you second guess your actions, but the thought that maybe there's more to these shades than meets the eye gnaws in the back of your mind. Then you hit the ending and learn the truth. Shades are the souls of life forms that were separated from their bodies in a failed effort to save humanity from a deadly illness thousands of years earlier. But it isn't just that twist alone that makes this point so special. It's the fact that in your second playthrough, you run through those same moments again, only this time you can understand what the shades are saying and the pure-hearted motives of those you've been thoughtlessly murdering. In a devilishly clever deception, it turns out HalfLife Alyx is both a prequel and semi-sequel to Half-Life 2. Taking place 5 years before it, Alex Vance's quest to steal a Combine superweapon from a vault turns out to actually be a rescue mission breaking into a prison. While you're told the heroic Gordon Freeman is inside, it's not until Alex unlocks the cell that the truth is revealed. The prisoner is really the otherworldly G-Man. It's a masterful switcheroo with massive implications. The G-Man uses his powers to jump Alex into the future to the notorious cliffhanger ending of Episode 2, allowing her to stop her father's death before it happens. He then plucks her from that moment in time, and you're dropped into Gordon's shoes instead. It's an incredible twist for both Alex's story and our own expectations of what this game was supposed to be, deepening the history of the series while also paving the road for its future.
Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
This exceptional moment from the original BioShock elevates what could have been an otherwise unremarkable heel turn into one of the most memorable twists ever. One moment you're helping a plucky Irishman lead a rebellion against some Ayn Rand wannabe jerkwad, the next you're reeling from the revelation that not only is your buddy Atlas very much not your buddy, he's not even Irish. Oh, and you're also part of some genetic experiment that's been hypnotically conditioned to obey a command phrase, which Atlas, aka the mobster Frank Fontaine, has been using on you for basically every objective of the video game up to this point. It's a truly unforgettable reveal, one that plenty of developers and players alike are still chasing the high of. Star Wars loves its shocking reveals, and Knights of the Old Republic is up there with the very best of them. Through much of BioWare's classic RPG, you're on the trail of Darth Malak, the apprentice of a powerful and deadly Sith Lord named Darth Revan. But as the story approaches its climax, the truth comes out. Bastila, the Jedi originally responsible for hunting Revan and your potential girlfriend, was able to capture the Dark Jedi and erase his memories. It turns out that you were Revan all along, meaning that you were responsible for countless deaths and massacres. It calls everything you've done to that point into question, especially if you've been playing nice and sticking to the light side of the Force. With the truth laid bare, you're free to forsake your past as a Sith Lord, or once again embrace your dark heritage. It's no wonder that KOTOR is consistently hailed as the best Star Wars game ever made. The original Metal Gear Solid established two things: that Solid Snake was one of the coolest video game protagonists ever, and that Hideo Kojima wasn't above using his games to mess with players' heads. Still, nobody expected that Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty would sideline Solid Snake, particularly considering all the marketing leading up to that point focused on him. Even the glowing reviews published prior to release mentioned nothing out of the ordinary. Then, at launch, players got quite a shock. Following a brief prologue section starring their beloved mulleted super soldier, the story jumped ahead and put them in the shoes of a new character who was a complete stranger, a whiny, flaxen-haired, walking Titanic reference by the name of Raiden. Our exclamation points collectively turned into question marks. As the story progressed, we were eventually reunited with Snake, but only as an NPC there to offer guidance and exposition. Understandably, this was a letdown, but Kojima had his reasons. He wanted players to get to know Snake as an autonomous character, rather than just an avatar they were controlling. But it got weirder. By Metal Gear Solid 2's ending, it became clear that this was about more than just super spies fighting giant mechs. This was a game about, among other things, how easily the general public can be manipulated in the information age. Like, for example, the thousands of people who pre-ordered a brand new video game because they wanted to play as Solid Snake again. It might have rubbed fans the wrong way, but Metal Gear Solid 2's Snake and Switch served its purpose, leaving its mark as one of the biggest surprises in video game history, and arguably the biggest twist in a video game itself. And thankfully, every Metal Gear Solid game since then has starred Snake in some form, and Raiden was never heard from again. Except as a cyborg ninja side character who eventually got his own game where you could cut watermelons in half. And there you have it. Did your favorite twist make the cut? If not, fire off some spoilers in the comments below. And if you want more, be sure to go check out our 10 best battle royales and the 10 best final bosses in video games. And for everything video games, you're already in the right place, IGN.